If anyone accuses you of being sensitive, what if you could just confidently say, "Thank you, it's my superpower"?
Today on Honestly, Dear Listener, we're talking about finding the control knob on our sensitivity and delighting in the spectrum of its possibilities.
And we're also talking about babies on the subway.
We're two childhood best friends talking about creative mindset.
I'm Emily Hatch.
And I'm Carrie Schaefer, and this is Honestly, Dear Listener.
Honestly, dear listener.
Woo! Tell me something good.
Man, I feel like it's always something with old Emily. But
Old Emily.
okay, I have to say, and or middle-aged Emily, I don't know. I've been like really irritable for the last day and a half or so.
Me too.
Is it planetary? I don't know enough about the stars.
I
Um,
totally. Yes. I don't know, but I wonder are you on your period? Am I on my I don't know if I'm on my period. You
Me
know how
neither.
when women get together and their periods influence one another?
They
I
sync
don't have a
up.
period anymore. So I don't know.
Me neither.
And maybe you're affecting me all the way from New York.
We do talk a lot. That could be it. My uterus is non-existent. I kicked that bitch out. Too many problems.
Mhm.
First, like ending up in the hospital hemorrhaging, and then you're
Oh
trying to
lord.
kill me with cancer. How about just get out?
Yeah.
Thanks for the kid.
Evicted.
Yeah, you're out of here. I do have my ovaries though, so I
So
still
do
have a
I.
cycle. See, we're so great.
Yay. I
Just over
know.
here, not bleeders.
Yep.
Um,
It's great, but one of the things that's kind of inconvenient though is that I don't know if I am on my period or not. But I still cycle like you. So
mhm.
I just don't know. But yeah, I've been
Like is
super testy lately. See what I did there?
mhm.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I I wonder, like, does it matter? I mean, I guess we're trained our whole lives to be like, there has to be a reason that I'm upset that has to do with my body, right? So now you just
Mm.
have to figure out if people are just really fucking annoying or if you are on your period that you don't have. Or maybe, plot twist, it's both. Maybe people are really fucking annoying and you're sensitive to it. Um,
Yeah.
it just seems like everything is harder right now.
Mhm.
And I have to tell you a story, and I'm going to tell you the moral of the story first.
Okay. Hit
The
me.
moral of the story is people can really be trying to help you, but be completely wrong. Um, and both things can exist. They could just be a kind person that's just not headed in the right direction. And
Mm.
today I so we were recording at like noonish, and I've already worked this morning for the band that I work for, and I was on my way back from a venue, and I got on the train and I ran up the stairs, and this happens a lot. I ran up the stairs, you hear like the train number to this place is now boarding. Like stand away from the platform edge or whatever when the train's arriving. So I run up the stairs, I get on the train, I look at the sign, I sit down. I hear the people next to me talking, and they were like, "Oh my God, I knew once we were headed above ground that we were going the wrong direction. And now I'm just trying to get to blah, blah, blah." Okay, so when you are
Wow.
headed above ground, you're going to Queens, which is where I live, from Manhattan. If you are headed from above ground to underground, you're going back to Manhattan. So I'm on the train. I decide because I am a pro now, I live here and I've been like not having to use my phone to get places, that I will help them. And I took this man on an emotional roller coaster ride, um, because I was like, "Oh, you guys are headed further into Queens right now," because that's where I was going. And he was like, "Oh my God, are you serious?" And I was like, "Yeah," because we were still above ground. And I was like, Look, it happens all the time. Like, it's just such a small platform and it's right across on the other side. You would be headed to Manhattan." And And he's like, "Oh, I thought we got on where it said Manhattan." And I was like, "Other side of the platform." And then we headed underground,
Oh, no.
and I was like, "Oh, good news for you. Um, you are correct." Not only was I not on the number train that I was wanting to be on, I was headed back to Manhattan. I was, like, supposed to be on the 7, I was on the N.
Oh,
I was supposed to go
no.
to Queens, I was going to Manhattan, and I brought
So
a couple of confused friends along. Uh, I did not lead them actually astray, but this guy went on a whole journey with me emotionally as a repeat of the moral of the story is you can really be trying, like, someone could be very insistent and confident in the way that they're telling you to go, and they could be completely wrong. We're
yep,
all just trying to help each other out on this subway that is life.
that's right. Well, way to go, you trying to be a good, helpful person, and then your heart was in the right place. What can we say? Your brain and your body are not in the right place, but your heart was. To be fair, I want you to know that and maybe this is an unpopular opinion, especially probably for Manhattanites, but I do find the subway system confusing. Now, I'm not there enough to get really good at it, but the times that I was responsible to alone for getting myself from point A to point B, I did it. I figured it out, but it was not without some hiccups along the way. And thank God for our phones now. Oh my gosh. Like, what would we be
Mhm.
doing? What did they do back in the day? Like a paper map?
I mean, they have a map posted, and
Still,
to to be honest, I would like to just say, because I'm very embarrassed, that in my defense, I do feel that it's gridded out really well. Uptown, the numbers go up, downtown, the numbers go down. I
totally.
understand avenues are different than streets. Like, it's pretty gridded. But when you are overheated running up the stairs and you hear a Flushing bound Main Street local train is now arriving, please stand away from the platform edge. You run your ass up the stairs and you get on the train whose doors just opened because that's the one that just arrived.
Yep. I have never been in a workout class that worked my thighs quite like trying to make the train in New York. And your thighs are like seriously. And the last time, I think you and I were together, the last time when I was rushing to get to a train, the thing that I
Mhm.
had to think about was this is so stupid. No wonder I'm so anxious all the time. The thing I told myself was imagine that if you did not make this train, something bad was going to happen to your kids. We made the train. My thighs died, but like, no wonder I'm so anxious. Like, what am I
Oh my
doing
God.
making the stakes so freaking high? It's just a train. You just wait for what, like 10 to 15 minutes for the next one,
If
if that?
tops,
Right.
usually less than 10, usually less than
Totally.
5, depending on where you are. Yeah.
So
Something
I don't
bad's going to
know.
happen to your kids.
I
And
It's the OCD. It's the OCD. You know, there's something really and I think I can say this because and I'm about to wax poetic about the subway system in New York, but there's something that is so great about taking the train. Like it for and like I said, I think I can say that because I take it so rarely because I don't live there that like hasn't lost its charm for me, but like sometimes you are in someone's lap practically.
oh yeah.
And there's something kind of beautiful about having to be so close to another human being that is also a
Mhm.
living, breathing, pooping, peeing, farting organism.
Hopefully not on the train because that
Hopefully not on
happens,
the
but yes.
train, but like maybe just the breathing part, but like nothing else. But yeah, that I don't know. Like there's something about because normal if you don't live in New York City and you don't live in a
Mhm.
big city that also has public transportation like that, which is most cities, I would
Mhm.
imagine, um,
Mhm.
you're kind of in your car alone, which is also great. Like, it's great. I love being in my car alone. But there is a time when I feel like my life and the privileges that I have in my life mean that I can go whole days without really being around people. Now I'm around my family and
Mm.
stuff, but I
Mhm.
mean like society, strangers.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I find that I get a little bit sad if
Mhm.
I'm doing the home thing for too long. Does that make do you feel
100%.
does that I'm not gonna say does that make sense, but does it?
Yes, it makes sense. You know what was weird to me, was, like, when I realized I was getting a little socially anxious,
Mm,
and I was on the train and was around people all the time, but then looking someone in the face made me, like because I had been like, my husband travels quite a bit, I had been alone in my apartment a lot, and when I was going places, I was working by myself,
mhm.
but in New York, you're around shit tons of people in
Yeah.
public, but you're kinda trying not to look at them or, like, really connect with them. Now, like you
Right?
said, there are times on the train where someone I'm sitting on my ass and so is someone else, if or s somehow, um, but, like
The picture in my brain.
but,
Keep
like,
going.
you're trying to not look at them or, like, think about them or
Right?
anything, like, don't be weird. Yeah, so there there is this weird alone together element, um, of the
Yeah.
train, and I take the train quite a bit, and I still as long as I feel safe because there are times that you're like, "This person's crazy," or whatever, but if I feel safe, I find it charming. There have been
Yeah.
times that I've just been sitting on the train and I'm, like, low key looking around thinking about this happened a few months ago, I might have actually said it on the podcast. Everybody's a baby.
Mhm.
Like,
To
I had
someone.
this weird, yes, like, this is someone's little baby. Like, I looked
Oh,
around the train and I was like, "There are little babies in here." That's so
yeah.
weird. Anyway, but yeah,
No,
I
I
think
agree. And I don't think you have to have kids to feel that way, but I think having kids I remember when I came home from the hospital and then I had new eyes almost. Like I
Mhm,
had a new filter and it was
mhm,
just so beautiful being able to look around at all the people and be like, that's a baby. And
mhm.
that was once this just like helpless little innocent ball of really cute farting flesh, again with the farting, but, like,
A
that's
lot
what
of
we do,
farts
I
coming
guess, as
out.
humans. Lots of them. I
We
mean, it just
lots of
happens.
farts.
Sorry, dear listener, I got farts on the brain today, I guess. So
I have
anyway
brain farts and Carrie has farts on the brain.
man, I mean, yeah. Anyway,
But it's true, like,
yeah,
they're all somebody's thinking I mean, this is what I was thinking that day. Someone's thinking about you and wondering how you are and if you're
yeah,
okay,
yeah,
Like, and hoping
mhm,
that whatever you're going to do right now makes you happy,
right,
unless your mom's a dick, but probably not, you know?
right, yeah,
It's,
or one
it's a
would hope,
beautiful
like,
thing.
that's what I want for everyone, is that they had someone that was like, "I love this person unconditionally. Like,
Mhm,
this is my baby," or an equivalent of that, you know?
mhm.
That's
Well,
ultimate privilege right there is saying, "Boy, this got super sentimental, but I, like,
it
really mean
did.
it."
I know, I got a little
Ooh.
emosh over here.
Yeah. I mean, people are just people connection is so cool, I think.
Mhm.
That's what I'm really
It
getting at.
it really is. It's like so a lot of the time when I'm on the train, I listen to David Sedaris's
Oh,
stories.
yes. Love
Um,
David Sedaris.
and I was thinking today about the fact that like, he just talks about living and different interactions and how weird they are and sometimes sad and like funny and whatever. And I'm like, I love listening to this because I love the stories of
Mhm.
humanity. And
Yep.
I think that's what we're looking for in in our entertainment and in our art
Mhm.
in many ways is the story of other humans,
Yeah,
and the way they perceive things and their sensitivities, if you will.
right.
Um, which brings me to what I would like to talk about today.
Ooh, let's
Um,
talk about it. What is it? What is it?
let's talk about sensitivity.
Ooh, it's a big topic, Emily.
It is, and it's a little hairy, you know?
It
It's,
is.
uh it's got a lot of weirdness attached to it, and I think just now, which wasn't planned in any way, an example of that is us talking about how we're perceiving others in public situations as babies and as like, thinking about hoping someone loves them. I think our creative, like as creatives, we have talked about this before, like we are sensitive beings and that's part of what makes us good at our art, you know?
Right.
And not even
Yeah.
just like just our just art, but in our jobs day to day if we're not doing our art, for a living. I think about the fact that a big a big part of what I'm doing lately is like I look at situations and kind of see what's transpiring, like what the interactions between people are and how I can make things better and how I can improve communication. And
Mhm.
I think the reason that I'm good at that is because I am sensitive.
Mhm.
But I do not get to pick where that sensitivity stops,
Mhm.
you know? Like,
Totally.
I pick up on subtext really well.
Mm.
And I think it is a really huge blessing because I'll be like, okay, where is that kind of coming from? And how can I help make this better? Help communication, like help, because I work with like artist companies. Um, but sometimes I pick up subtext that is kind of condescending and kind of like maybe coming from a place of pain, but they are also like directing it at me or directing it at something. And I wish I could turn that off. When
Yes.
you Sometimes when you bring that to a situation, like someone's being kind of crappy to you or whatever, you get the like, oh, you're being very sensitive.
And
Or
especially us women get told we're
yes.
being
Oh
very
my gosh.
sensitive. Like, it's
I and
interesting because society says that if you're a woman and you're sensitive, that's cool. In fact, that's even expected. Like, "Oh, you're a woman. Are you on your period? You're just being a little sensitive," you know?
you're like, I don't know.
Men
Just kidding.
Yeah. Shut up. Men I feel like it's harder for men because that is not what's expected. Like, to be a sensitive man is like men being called sissies or Sallys, or which is interesting because to call a sensitive man a woman, like a
Mhm.
Sally, it shits on all the genders, you know?
Mhm.
It's not cool. So,
No.
anyway, but yeah, women mainly because of patriarchy once again. Yeah, it's more sanctioned for women, to be sensitive, but, like, not it's still not held as a virtue, I guess.
Even though it is, and it's
Oh,
a lot
yeah.
of the reason why companies are like, I value the opinion of this person because they're really good at being able to tell this thing. Until they say
Right.
something to me that I don't like, and then they're just being sensitive, or until they say to me that they didn't like what I said or did, then they're being sensitive. I mean, I've come into roles in companies after another woman has been let go, and the bosses will be like, "Oh, she was really just she took everything personally. She was really sensitive."
Mm,
And I'm like, um, okay. Like, how am I supposed to handle that? So, like,
right.
I feel like today, I was just thinking about because I picked up on something where I was pretty sure that the people were kind of like that someone was like I was thinking about a situation that had happened where I think someone was kind of mocking me. Uh, and I was like, I don't care. But it was like, I wish that I could turn it off at a
Yeah.
point and not be like, "Oh, that was kinda rude." You know? I
Yeah.
wish I could just be like, I don't notice that." Like
Mhm.
so many people I know.
Right.
Namely, like, men that I know that are like,
Yep.
"Oh, I didn't think that happened." Like, "Okay." Um,
No,
what are
absolutely.
what are some reasons that sensitivity in any gender is great? Let's
Oh,
let's
man.
just let's just list some reasons.
Well, I think that sensitivity, especially as for an artist, is a boon. Like all
What does that mean?
like it's a an arrow in your quiver. It is a
Oh.
positive thing. Yeah, it's a tool that you can actually use to see things differently, to describe things differently, to maybe because you're sensing things that maybe most people would miss, you're
Mhm,
able to and you're curious about things, those things that often get just, written off as like, oh yeah, well that's every day, that's mundane. As an example, I think David Sedaris is a wonderful example of this. He takes
mm,
a lot of things that are everyday mundane interactions and he sees the weird in it. So he's
mhm,
transforming the everyday into the strange is and that's why I love so much of his things is he's sensitive to strangeness or the potential for
mhm,
strangeness. And he filters it through that lens and strange weirdness comes out the other side and we
mhm,
go, "Oh my gosh, that's so weird." Like David Sedaris, like, of course, why are all of these weird things happening to him? When the truth probably is that we all have weird, strange lives. We are just not approaching it maybe with the same sensitivity that he is. And his lens is a very tuned one. He's been writing for decades now, like his whole life.
mhm,
So he is very primed and attuned to those things. Um, and that's great. He's made a whole career out of it. Like, and
mm.
his writing is just delicious, you know?
It
Um,
is.
so I think that that's how sensitivity is a wonderful thing is that us artists, like I've heard it said, like all art is really just paying attention and then
Mm,
and then mirroring that attention of the thing back to the world. Now that is a very reductive, like, definition of what art is because I think art doesn't have to have any definition. Like, you don't have to it doesn't have to have purpose, but that's I love the way that that kind of sums up what you're doing is we think of it as this magical thing, but really everyone has power of attention. If
mhm,
if we choose to, if we choose to be and I think you can become more sensitive if you choose that.
mhm.
So what do you think? What do you think the positives of being sensitive are?
I think, noticing others, like, in where they could be coming from, uh,
Mhm.
and seeing things in people that others might not see,
Yeah.
because everyone's really in their main character energy all the time. And I think it's really cool to think about the people that are just like doing something you don't think about, and thinking about how they're feeling and what their day's been like and what their strengths are. And you know, I think that's extremely valuable as a person in society, to see someone that a lot of people are just like, "Oh, you're just doing your thing." Like, that's you are the sound guy. You are the
Mm.
that picks up the trash outside. You are and it's like, no, there's a complex, beautiful human being that is doing something that you're not doing, taking the time to care about having conversations with people that are doing things that you're not doing, I think is like a really wonderful thing. And I think a lot of the time there are like big attention people that don't take the time to be sensitive to what other people's lives are like. I think that's a really
Mhm.
great thing. And sometimes it's like, oh, you actually care? Like, seeing other people actually like
Mhm.
as their beautiful selves. Um, I think that's valuable, because I think there are just people that need to be seen, and that like
Yeah.
a level of sensitivity and how you handle speaking with other people that aren't doing what you're doing. Like, I think that's a
Yeah.
very valuable thing and
Well, what
helps
you're
other
talking
people.
about sounds like empathy, which
Mhm.
I mean, so I think of people as because there are people that are like, I'm not interested in other people. Like I'm interested in who I'm interested in, but like there are people that I don't find interesting. And if I'm, stuck in a room with a whole bunch of people that I don't find interesting, I'm bored. What do I do with that? And so, and I've discussed this with my clients because I love, oh, it's one of the most fun things that I do when I'm in a situation where I feel like, oh no, what, I just don't, I think I'm going to be bored by this room full of people. I do this thing where I think, okay, everyone has something special, and all all my responsibility is right now is to find a shiny thing or a treasure that this person has. I won't find every treasure, but I'm gonna find, what is it about this person? What is a thing that is so interesting? And I call it going on a treasure hunt, where
Hmm.
I will sit across from someone and I'll just ask questions. Like, because my job right now is to find a an interesting thing, a shiny thing, or whatever you want to call it. And
Mhm.
and that involves asking questions to people. And I mean, I there's maybe been one time that I was not able to find something interesting about a person. And I think that
Hmm.
that one time it was on me. It wasn't even on the other person. I was in a weird state of mind, but every single time basically you can find something that's interesting. And that comes
Mhm.
from a sense of it all I'm doing when I'm doing that is turning up my sensitivity knob and going, "Okay,
Mhm.
I'm gonna figure out, like, this person is going to register on my seismograph." And
Mhm.
it could be a big register, like it could be an earthquake, it could be a tiny little tremor, but I'm going to find it, and I'm gonna do that by turning up the sensitivity.
Mhm. And I feel like most people really want to be seen by someone else
Yes,
and be like, "I do have interesting things and I want to tell you about it." You know? I think there are a lot of value there's a lot of value to sensitivity. And I think in companies and in, art once it's made, people can see value in sensitivity. Um
absolutely.
I mean, empath was like a real hot word there for a while.
Mhm.
Everyone's an empath, and and that was like that's a really good thing. Um, but then it swings really hard again, like I was saying earlier, when they're like, okay, that's enough sensitivity now. Thank you
Yep.
for like um, identifying the issue and being able to clearly like figure out what's going on here and being sensitive to. I mean, jobs like when you're at a hospital and you have a person in the medical field who has no sensitivity. I mean, they literally have
Mm.
to do sensitivity trainings for places.
Wow. For,
I would
like,
imagine
bedside
it would be
manner?
hard. I mean, there are literal sensitivity trainings.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, because I could imagine your sensitivity knob in high stress situations like that, where you're around, it, intense stuff. You would
Mhm.
have to turn it down a little bit, or you might not be
That's a good
okay.
point. That's a really good
Um,
point. I
but
always think of
when it's missing as the patient, like
right.
when, oh, I need a little more sensitivity than that, doctor. You know?
Well, and I've been watching, I've been watching this show on, Max, formerly known as HBO. It's called Signs of a Psychopath, and it is
Ah,
fascinating because we think of like, oh, empathy, like I think a lot of people look at sensitivity and they're like, you're too sensitive, you're too blah, 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 whatever. And we think of it as like, oh, everyone has levels of sensitivity. There are people that are missing that whole spectrum of
mm,
feeling. Um, and it corresponds with a high level of psychopathy where there's really no empathy. And when you try and, these people that have done these terrible, horrible murders because they were bored, quote unquote, with air quotes. Yeah.
mm,
Um, it and you ask them, like, don't you feel bad for doing these things? And they go, well, and they interpret that because there's no empathy, there's no ability for empathy there or capacity.
mm-hmm.
And so they go, well, I mean, I could have done a better job. And the interviewer is like, "That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying whether you did a good or bad job at the murder. I'm saying, do you feel bad?" And it's almost like saying, it's like saying, "Okay, Emily, speak Arabic." And you're going, "I don't know how to speak Arabic." And then me going, "But just speak it." That's what it's kind of like for people who don't have that specific sensitivity. They
Yeah,
literally cannot. And
yeah,
so being sensitive and being empathetic is really, really I mean, it's a sign of mental and emotional health. Um,
mm-hmm.
it really is a blessing. What are times when you feel like sensitivity has not like being sensitive has not helped you or you wish you could turn it down?
Um, I think it stopped me from making stuff at times,
Tell me about that.
or trying, right? Like,
Mhm.
I think, you in my old age now, I've been waiting for that moment that everybody keeps talking about where you start caring less about what people think.
Yeah,
Um,
when's that supposed to
and
happen?
I know I thought it was 30s, but I guess it's not. So we're almost 40 over here and 40. And I'm like, I think it's coming. Before, I think my sensitivity was like more reactive. In a
Mhm.
way, it was like, you said something to me that directly hurts me, and that is going to cause me to feel self conscious. now moving forward, I will take your words that I have become very sensitive to, as gospel, and now I shall not try these things. Or
Mm,
I'll be like, this might happen again, you know? So that sensitivity that I'm like, what if people won't like it? And I don't want to upset people, or I don't want to hear them say something mean to me. So I'm not going to make my things because I don't think I can take it. I mean,
right.
one of the reasons I stopped doing theater was because I was tired of being told. It happened maybe 3 or 4 times almost in a row that I was told I was fat or ugly, or like I
God.
could not do this or I could not do that. Now look, now in my almost 40 place, I look at that and I still think it would really, really upset me. But
Mhm.
I can see
Yeah.
people a little bit, I could see people a little bit more for who they are.
Mhm.
And instead of having to villainize them, I can be like, well, you're coming from a weird place.
Yeah.
Uh, so that turning it back to good. But I think, um, especially in my younger years and still sometimes, it's bad when it stops me because it
Mm,
like I become very like, uh, this hurts and I don't want to feel this again. And so I'm just gonna not do anything, you know?
yeah.
And I have a lot of students that have said like, my teacher said this thing to me about how I could never sing and I just didn't, you know. So
Mm,
in the times where we are very tender and someone hurts us, that
mhm.
sensitivity kind of can stop us from
Yeah,
even trying something, even though it was just one person's shitty comment, you know?
right,
Um, you shouldn't be so sensitive. You shouldn't let it
right.
stop you. Like, okay. Um, so in that way, what do you think? What's a time where you felt like sensitivity was negative?
Mhm. I think that there are times when I can be almost I struggle with boundaries. I have in the past. I'm working on my boundaries with other people where I will be too empathetic or I will believe so much in somebody's potential rather than
Mm.
who they really are at that moment. I can see
Mhm.
what they are capable of. And instead of believing um, in which it's a double-edged sword, right? Like, I wanna believe in people's potential. I wanna see
Mhm.
what's there and what could be possible, but unfortunately, I will not see what's really there at that specific moment. Like, they haven't taken those steps, and they're not that person yet. And so, I feel like that's come back to bite me several times, um,
Mm.
because I'm not seeing reality of the other person.
Mm.
And, yeah, so in that way, it's not great. But also, I feel like our psyches, because they're, like when the psyche perceives that something is going to be so painful or traumatic, um, it will oftentimes step in and turn down that sensitivity knob for us. And it's not a
Mhm.
conscious thing. Like, I when I was 5, a family member ended up sexually molesting me as a 5-year-old. I remember
Mm.
everything about my childhood. I do not
Mm.
remember that incident. And I think it was even though the trauma still lives in my body,
Mhm.
my brain was merciful to me and turned down the sensitivity knob when
Mm.
I couldn't when I really couldn't have um it would not have been good for me to remember those images and being in those situations. So I'm also very grateful that there's almost like these fail safes in our body that
Mhm.
protect us in times when we can't handle. Um, what's interesting is I happen to be married to a person who is on the spectrum. He got he got diagnosed a couple years ago, and he's very, very high functioning. He but it's interesting because he just operates on this premise that if somebody is going to say something hurtful,
Mhm.
if they're gonna say something that's hurtful, he's not going to listen to or register it unless they say it outright directly. So if I'm
Mm.
picking up a lot of these, like, with my seismograph, because I'm sensitive to
Mhm.
rejection and I'm sensitive to people being like, I don't like that girl, she's weird.
Mm.
Um, there's times when I'm like, "Oh, do you think this person meant this thing or not? Do you think that I should read into it? Do you think I what do you think?" And he'll say, "I would not. I would on purpose turn down your sensitivity
Mm.
knob to that unless they're willing to be candid and have a candid adult conversation." Because
Mm.
I could read into everything and it's not helpful. Most of the time, it's
Mm.
not helpful. Now, there are times when reading into things is actually going to be beneficial and might even save your life. Who knows? But for
Mhm.
the majority of the time, if somebody's going to be passive aggressive, then we have a choice there. We can either choose to disregard it because it's not helpful for us and we just maybe give somebody the benefit of the doubt, or we choose
Mhm.
to be direct and say, "Hey, you said this thing. I could be reading into it, but did you mean it in this way?" And then we know for sure whether now, I mean, that takes kind of the nuance of knowing what's important to you and what's not important to you. Like there are lots of comments that people make that I'm like, I don't care about this relationship enough to really, like, call them on the passive aggression, but there are
Mhm.
relationships that I do care. You know, if
Mhm.
you said something to me that could be interpreted one way or the other, it would be in the best interest of our relationship for me to say, "Hey, this came across the way. Did you mean it like this?" And
Right.
then you could say, "Yes, I did. Let's have a conversation," or "No, I didn't mean it that way." And then I could be like, "Okay, cool. Let's keep
Mhm.
going," you know?
I love that like, just implying and saying out loud, "We have a choice."
Mhm.
Like, "Oh, that's interesting."
Yeah.
Because another that's huge. I mean, like, what I was talking about today, the thing where I was like, "I'm pretty sure they were kinda mocking me." I
Mm.
was like, "Hmm, I don't care
Right.
necessarily, but it's hard not to be like, I would love to over explain why I'm not being dumb right now,
Mhm.
to these people that I really don't care one way or another if they thought I was being dumb or whatever I perceived. There's a choice there to just put it in a little bubble and blow it away and be like, this doesn't matter. Um,
Oh, I love
I
that.
think,
Put it in a bubble and blow it away.
yes, just like
Yeah.
there it went. Um, I think another time that sensitivity can be bad is when it makes you angry and then
Mm.
makes you react in a way that is not helpful for you or the people around
Mhm.
you. And I think that is the tough one where you
Yeah.
said your body perceives danger and
Mhm.
if it does not turn down the sensitivity knob, but in fact can turn it up, um, I think I've been learning to take a second more. I'm not an angry person at all, but I am pretty reactive in
Mhm.
certain instances where I feel like someone is trying to be mean.
Right.
I will like, I'm a justice seeker in that way for others and myself, where I'll be like, don't do that. Um, in that way, sensitivity, not so much a friend. Um, I've been taking a little moment to be like,
Mm.
okay, so maybe they flat out, I mean, there are times in when you work in the arts, especially with others, there have been times where someone really did mean exactly what they said, and
Mhm.
it was mean, and they are mad.
Yep.
And you have to be like, okay, Or I mean, instances where it's like, "Oh, you're being oversensitive about this and emotions are high." Like, okay, so there's a double whammy. Have you
Ugh.
been through this where, like,
Yep.
the person is being mean
Mhm.
and the people who are supposed to protect you are telling you you're being oversensitive?
Yeah.
This is
Oh,
a
what a
good
mind
moment.
game.
This is a good moment for your sensitivity to be as turned down as possible. Now, look, I'm not talking about gaslighting yourself
Right.
at all and being like, I'm just being sensitive. But I am talking about being able to take a minute and look at the situation. Usually, when people are being mean, there's a reason for that happening. They are
Mm.
coming from a place. Maybe you did say something that triggered something in them. If you don't take a step back and tell your sensitivity, thank you very much. Let's take a second. Um, I could use that sensitivity then to be like, where could this have been coming from? Is there anything
Mm.
in here that I did do uh, that could have hurt their sensitivity? And then be like, okay, great. I remove myself from this and I could use that then moving forward. But when we don't, I feel like I'm word salading.
No,
But
I
when
I
we
know what you
don't
mean.
like take a look at that, we can just keep turning up on both sides.
Right.
Um, and so I think that can be bad, but it can also be good because then you can take a look and go, I mean, not everybody's real great. You can be like, oh, I see that you're like internally, I see that you're a very insecure person. I didn't realize that about you. I must have said something that triggered your oversensitivity about your insecurities. Okay,
Mm.
great. Like, sorry about
Yeah.
that. Didn't mean to hurt your feelings. Um,
Yeah.
so I think it can be bad, but
Mhm.
it can also be really good and like glass half full of
Right.
sensitivity.
I think it's really important to guard the blunting of our sensitivity. Like it's one thing to intentionally say, I'm going to turn down my sensitivity knob because I need to draw a boundary here, or I want to make sure that I'm protecting myself. I think there's
Mm,
also for artists, we there's real exhaustion that comes from like there are things that hit us all the time, whether that's social media or
mm,
too much stimulus, too much inputs, noise, even I know people that can't handle certain strong tastes. Like it's all the senses you can get overloaded by. For example, for me, and we've talked about this before, I deleted Instagram from my phone. I still have an account, but I don't access it on my phone because I found that my sensitivities were becoming overloaded. I was exposing myself to so much stimuli online, and it's so easy. It's like if I didn't feel stimulated by one person's post, I could just scroll, and then I would figure out what I was stimulated by, and so I was blunting my ability to be sensitive in my
mm,
normal, quote unquote, creative life because I was blowing out all my sensitivity on social media. And so I said, whoa, whoa, I
mhm,
don't want that anymore. So now when I check social media, it is on my computer. It is way less accessible to me so that I have to be intentional when I do social media versus when it was just on my phone. And it was rarely intentional. It was just like a gut
mm,
reaction to just open Instagram. Um,
mhm,
so I feel like guarding our sensitivity and saying, okay, no, I could blow my sensitivity on that thing or that thing, but I care about my art so much that I want to save my sensitivity for that thing that is
mm.
really, really important to me. And that is
I love
creating
that.
or what I'm writing or what
I
I'm
love that.
whatever. And also when it comes to sensitivity, oh, I'm up on my soapbox now. Huh. Here's the mountain that I'm gonna die on, right? And
Don't die on it,
I'm
just
not gonna
live up
die
there.
on it, but if I have to, I will because I feel really strongly about it and I'm not good at it and I'm constantly practicing it. And it's this. What other people think about us and what other people think about what we create are none of our goddamn business. They're not. I mean, you don't see,
Mhm.
like, I hear so many creatives and celebrities and people that make things saying, I absolutely would be in the worst place possible if I Googled myself. All I want to do is like Google myself and drop into other people's conversations and know exactly what they think about me and they think about my art. It's none of my business.
Mhm.
And there's,
Mhm.
I mean, especially for artists, especially for creatives who are so sensitive. Like, if I hear something disparaging about me or something that I create, it could take me out. It could take me
Yep.
out of commission for like, I don't know how long, days, weeks. I mean, I've heard of artists being taken out for years because of
Yep.
something that they have exposed themselves to that was none of their business about
Yep.
themselves or the things that they make. And
Yep.
this is something that I mean, as we get more and more, I don't know, successful, whatever that means out in the world, as we become more commercially successful, which is a whole podcast in and of itself right there. But you're gonna have more people like what you make and you're gonna have more people not like what you make. Like I spent a whole 10 minutes the other day researching on Goodreads one-star reviews for Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic, which we talk about all the time because we love it.
Mm.
And here I am
Mhm.
over here thinking like, my gosh, like, could there be anyone that would give that book a 1 star? Because it's been so impactful and so groundbreaking for me in my walk as an artist.
Me too.
Totally, there's so many people that have given that book 1 star. And I'm like,
Yep.
"Wait, what? If they're out here giving Liz Gilbert 1 stars for Big Magic, like, what am I doing giving a fuck what other people think about me?"
I love that. You could have taken that, though, if your sensitivity is in a bad spot and gone, if this book that's had such a huge impact on my life is getting 1 star from all these people, why should I even try?
Totally.
Or
Totally.
you can say exactly what you're saying. Like, why does this even, like,
Yep.
why should this even matter to me? It's
Yep.
none of my business. Sorry,
There's
I interrupted.
no, you're fine. There's for every person that loves something that is, like, universally adored, right? Like, I'm thinking, like, okay, what are the works of art that people absolutely love? Like, I don't know, Whitney Houston, the Mona
Mhm.
Lisa, um,
Mhm.
David Sedaris's books that I could just, like, snack on for the rest of my life. Like, for every person that loves those things, there is going to be someone who hates those things. There are people out there who think that Whitney Houston is not a good singer. What?
Mhm.
It's all subjective. So, knowing that it's highly subjective, therefore,
Mhm.
we can't care. We cannot
Mhm.
care whether someone thinks our art is good. What we can do is say, I cannot care about whether somebody thinks I'm good at XYZ. All I'm responsible for is showing up and doing the work.
That's right. Amen. And I think, I don't know if you're like me, you like feel guilty for being sensitive or caring.
Mm,
And recently, when I've been thinking about this, I have to start this gentleness practice with myself
mhm,
is really hard.
mhm,
So if
mm,
I literally will kick myself for caring.
yep,
And I'm like, this is a waste of time. So if you're in a place, dear listener, where you cannot not care, That is
Mhm.
okay. Like, what I've been trying to think about is that I love that about myself. I love that I care.
Yep.
Like, it's so special that I
Yeah.
care, and I don't wanna get rid of caring. So maybe
Mhm.
coming from that place and saying, "Ugh, this is hurting me. I shouldn't care about this." Like, maybe you could say, "It's really good that you care about what people feel and what they
Yeah.
think. In
Yep.
this instance, it's not helping.
Yeah.
So, like, let's figure out how to protect that because we only have so much
Right.
energy to give, and shouldn't we put that love and care in back into the people that do have a positive reaction,
Mhm.
or yourself? Put
Right.
that little care right back into making things. I know that's also very, very optimistic, but I think being okay with the fact that it hurt you
Mhm.
and that you're sensitive about it and that it's not helping, but
Mhm.
that we could take this and maybe see how could we protect her? How can we protect the sensitivity?
We have to become better at boundaries, and I think, at least the artists that I know aren't super great at boundaries. It's a practice that we all are working on. But, like,
Mhm.
I am not going to put myself I'm not going to Google myself. I never want to Google myself. I don't
Mhm.
do that. I don't surround myself with people who are gonna bring me down. I don't put myself in the way of people who make fun of other people's art. I do not
Mhm.
have the time, and I'm too sensitive to,
Same.
um, to listen to that for other people even, like, not even when they're talking about me, like, I don't want to watch that movie, the Jennifer Lopez movie and the accompanying
Mhm.
documentary, like, I don't want to do that because I don't wanna put
Mhm.
my inner artist in the space of, "Hey, look at all this backlash that JLo's getting. If you put yourself out there, you could get that too." Like,
Mhm.
I don't wanna do I could, but I don't want to. Um,
Yep.
I mean, I
And
do want
sometimes that's
to.
not reading the comments.
Right.
Sometimes
Yes.
that's, like, just if you're releasing something. I mean,
Mhm.
I think it was Elizabeth Gilbert that talked about, um, that she doesn't read a lot of that stuff, or she'll have
Yes.
some like, her friend read
A
reviews
trusted
or
friend.
comments for her. Yes,
Mhm.
like, there are only a few people that get let in to the
Mhm.
inner sanctum with my little, like, sensitive,
Yes.
childlike, creative self, and
Yep.
all those dumb comments on Instagram don't get in there. I mean,
Yeah.
that's partially why I you guys might notice I post less on Instagram. We got a bunch of views on some stuff, and
Mhm.
a bunch of people were mean, and I was just like, I'm too sensitive for this. So,
Yeah.
I've actually made my husband I was like I saw that there were some comments on some things on, YouTube, and I made him read them first and tell me if I could know
Yeah.
any of them.
And
You know?
it's not weakness either. I feel like a lot of people and myself included, like, well, if you were stronger, you'd be able to handle this. That's not what this is about.
Mm,
I want to be strong in ways that are going to bring me life and encourage me to make crap. By crap, I mean
exactly.
art, not actual
And
crap.
sometimes crap, and
And
that's
sometimes
okay.
crap.
Like
That's a great point. Like, you have to make crap before you make things that are amazing, or things that are you need the crap to be the fertilizer for the good art. You have to
it's
make it. We
ongoing
have to make
crap.
it. Yeah.
It's
But,
ongoing
like,
crap. Like, you can make something great one day and it's crap the next, and you don't need people to
absolutely.
tell you how crappy it is and then have you internalize it so you stop
Right.
making.
Like,
Mhm.
strength is not being able to handle all of these things that are real rough to our inner sensitive artist. Strength is being able to have boundaries and say, "I don't want to fill my mind with that." And let me say something. I want to clarify what I said earlier. When I said I don't wanna watch things like the Jennifer Lopez film and documentary, oh, I do wanna watch it. I absolutely do wanna watch it. But I am not going to do that because I don't wanna hurt my inner artist. Like, I want to Google myself. Like, I feel like we do wanna read the comments, but, like,
Mhm.
being having strength and being strong and having boundaries looks like I could do that, I want to do that, but I'm gonna choose not to do that because I don't wanna
Mhm.
hurt myself. So,
Mm. And
yeah,
that is valuing that sensitive part of you and
right.
saying, "I love you. Please don't go away. I don't
Yeah,
wanna chase you away. I gotta
yeah.
figure it out because I love us."
Yes. So, dear listener, please understand it's not just you, it's us too. And please, please be kind. And please, please know that those sensitive, like tender parts of you are beautiful. And we're lucky that you have them, and you're lucky that you have them.
Absolutely.
Oh, I wanted to mention that I'm gonna put, there are a couple of things that I think would be if you're interested in reading further about, sensitivity. There is a book, you might have heard of it. I'll put these resources in the show notes. It's called The Highly Sensitive Person: How to Thrive When the World Overwhelms You by Elaine N. Aaron. It's a book that came out in '96. Her website is great. She talks about being a highly sensitive person, the same stuff that we're talking about today. And there's also a test, a self test that you can take to, it's called the Are You Highly Sensitive? And then it just, there's a bunch of resources on there for people, how to survive in a world that is not especially built for highly sensitive people. So I'll put that in the show notes.
Thanks for hanging out with us and keeping your beautiful sensitive self.
Yeah. Okay, dear listener, go and have such a wonderfully sensitive week.
Honestly, dear listener.
Woo!